Thorny, as we venture into the R&R, two truths are consistent. We love our dear Montana state, and we love great beer. And you know who else feels the same? Jeremiah Johnson Brewing. Brewed in the heart of Montana in downtown Great Falls, Jeremiah Johnson takes Montana's finest ingredients to craft some of Montana's favorite beers. And now, Jeremiah Johnson's second tap room is open in downtown Coeur d'Alene. Their Citra IPA is probably one of my favorites. But we all know, Thorny, you're not the hop lover I am. You're more of a Mountain Man Scotch Ale.
Well, Foley, I'm certainly not a mountain man, but you are right. I do love their Mountain Man Scotch Ale. But come game day, you and I are both cracking their Golden Bobcat Pale Ale. So when you're looking for a quality craft beer brewed with Montana roots, a relaxing tap room, or just a six-pack to take to your favorite Bobcat tailgate, Jeremiah Johnson delivers. Make your next beer a Jeremiah Johnson, and as always, go Cats.
Welcome, everybody, to the R&R Catcast, a fan-based podcast focusing on Montana State athletics. We're two dudes named Ryan from the state of Washington talking about our dear Montana State. We hope you enjoy. Welcome back, Bobcat fans. Thanks for joining us. We are the Ryans of the R&R Catcast, the Montana State affiliate of the Big Sky Podcast Network. We are brought to you by Jeremiah Johnson Brewing, brewed in the heart of Montana in downtown Great Falls, with a second location in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Thorny, how are you doing tonight, buddy?
You know, not too bad. I had a productive weekend. As people who've been listening may or may not know, I moved into a new house. I finally got a TV mounted above the fireplace. That was a good half a day work right there. So feeling pretty accomplished today anyway. So I'm not doing too bad. How you doing?
I'm doing good. We just got back from the ski hill. The Foleys have been skiing the last, I think 4 weeks. It's been good. It's been kind of the thing our family is taken into. And I've skied my whole life pretty much. And now my two sons and my wife are into it, and so it's been a fun thing to get out of the house, essentially. I mean, we can't do much because of COVID, so going up to the ski hill seems to be pretty fun for us, and it's been a good time.
Can't say that I knew you guys were skiers. Downhill, I assume?
Yeah.
I did a fair amount of cross-country skiing when I was like a teenager in Montana, but never got really into downhill stuff.
Yeah, that's been fun. My wife's big cross-country skier, and I've done that in the past, and we've done it together, but my sons really like the downhill, and it's been fun.
All right. Well, there's some not fun things to talk about here tonight.
Well, it depends. I mean, we all have opinions on it, so that's why we're here. We're going to talk about the news that came out on Friday. Friday seems to be a big day for Montana State releasing news the last 2 Fridays. Jeff Choate was not hired at Boise State, and now this last Friday, we have the cancellation of our spring schedule, and now we're calling it the modification of spring for Montana State football.
It's like that movie, The Education of Charlie Banks, the modification of spring football. It just sounds like a fancy name, but it's really not.
Yeah, and that's really all we got on the slate. Besides, of course, what are we drinking tonight? So let's get right into that. And then we'll get into the news. So, Thorny, what are you drinking tonight, buddy?
All right. So I have a beer that I'm not all that impressed with. It is the Shake Side Stout. Is from Bend, Oregon, by the Crux Fermentation Project. What is that? Well, no wonder.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
You've heard of that? Okay.
Yeah.
It's a hybrid milk stout. I'm going to read this to you. Never satisfied by mere repetition, we decided to shake things up with the sessionable stout brewed with the lactose, sugar, and malted rye, a blend of both sweet and dry, stoutly traditions, rumbling with chocolatey undertones and subtle hints of spice. This is a smooth and creamy ale of seismic juxtapositions. It just tastes like dry. I didn't really know that dry stouts were a thing. This is dry. Apparently I don't like dry stouts, so learn something new.
It's quite the description.
And it's only 5% alcohol. What kind of stout only is 5%?
Well, Guinness is pretty low, isn't it?
That's like 0.3% higher than like a Bud Light.
I was going to ask you recently, when's the last time you had a straight Budweiser?
Like a Bud in the red can?
Yeah.
Man, it's been a while.
I can't think of it. I can't think of a time, like maybe in years I've had.
It's probably been college. Like I went into a little phase where, oh yeah, Bud, let's just do the real Bud, not the Bud Light stuff. But I don't think I bought that as a working class adult. Nothing
Nope.
against it. No, it's not what I go for.
Yeah. It's been years. It's been years.
My cheap go-to beer is usually Rolling Rock.
Yeah, I think I do that. All right. Well, let's see. So I went and picked up a 6-pack of, it's called Bob's Brown Ale. It's brewed out of Georgetown Brewing over there in Seattle. And they've had, Bodhisattva and Lucille. And I had another one. I'm blanking on it. Johnny Utah. Yeah. Same company.
We just watched Point Break, just letting you know, about a week ago. We got into like a whole like 80s, 90s action flick. We watched like Chase, or not Chase. What's the bus one? God, I can't think of it right now.
Speed.
There you go. Speed. Point Break.
Keanu Reeves
action movie marathon, apparently.
Nice, man. Anyways, I love brown ales. I love Moose Jewel. And so anytime I see a brown ale, you don't see brown ales all that often. And there's one lonely 6-pack over at the grocery store, and I picked it up, and 6.4% alcohol, which doesn't taste like a 6.4. And, sometimes you'll get that IPA that's about that, and you can taste it. It says it's brewed in the honor of our friend Bob Hirsch, benefiting our MHC of Western Washington and Alaska. I don't really know what that means, but it's pretty good, man. I like that. So it's it's the Ronald McDonald House charity of Western Washington and Alaska. I see the little signature there on the side of the can. Yeah. Anyways, Georgetown's always been pretty good for me, and I like brown ales, and so this is a pretty good marriage. I like it.
And it's kind of hard to find browns. I really like browns too. They're just not very common.
Mm-hmm. Well, this might be over in your neck of the woods. I mean, this is from Seattle, so you take a look at your grocery shelves next time when you're over there.
I mean, what do we have for browns? There's Moose Roll. There is what's the
Newcastle?
There we go. I was like, it's not Fat Tire, it's Newcastle. Yeah, those are the two I can really think off the top of my head. I haven't had Newcastle a long time either. Speaking of beers I haven't had a long time.
No, I always thought it weird that they had like a clear bottle for a brown ale.
So you can see that color.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, let's get right into it.
Yeah. Where do we even start here? Like, this is kind of an episode where we kind of geared up to do it yesterday. By the time recording time came around, I think we were both pretty tired. I'm like, no, not going to record tonight. So now we're more a further day removed after I spent like the evening yesterday listening to press conferences and gearing up for it. Now I forgot everything. So I don't know where we really want to start. We want to just kind of say what happened, the timeline, the facts, and then kind of start talking about how we feel about it.
Yes, I think that's a good plan.
All right. You want to take that, or what do you think?
I'll start us off.
Okay, thank you. Someone's got to start this party.
We haven't really planned this out. We're just spitballing at this point. So Friday, it started off going to work, and then in our text thread that we have between our Big Sky podcasting friends, we got a notification that said, some things might be going down today. It was kind of cryptic. And then so you started perusing Twitter, and then you see Sam Herder of FCS. Who's Sam work for? Excuse me.
Hero Sports.
Hero. Yeah, sorry. He would put out a tweet that, and I'm just paraphrasing, hearing rumblings or hearing something about some news coming out of the Big Sky today. And so we got a little wind of it before it actually came out officially, that's stating that both Montana and Montana State would be opting out of the spring FCS schedule that was put out probably in November. And that was a joint decision made by Seth Bodnar, president of U of M, as well as Wadid Cruzado, our president at Montana State University, as well as, coaches Jeff Choate and Bobby Houck, as well as Leon Costello and who's athletic director for U of M right now? Kit Haslam.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah.
So that team of people came together. Probably had advice given from doctors and medical experts as well. But the long story short, I mean, we're going to get into it and what that means. Now the six game season is done for Montana State, and Montana, they're calling it a modification of spring ball, with the idea of maybe scheduling 2 to 3 games, mostly non-conference is what we're hearing right now. So there is football on the horizon, but it kind of feels a little bit more like traditional spring ball is going to happen for both teams.
Yeah, and we'll talk about, we put it out there on Twitter, who should the Cats schedule, because it does sound like the Cats are interested in playing a couple games. I don't believe the MSU ruled out the possibility of playing a conference team. I know the Grizz did. They came out and pretty much said that we're not going to play any Big Sky teams, but I think the Cats actually left the door open for that. But we'll talk about that at the end after we kind of go through how we feel about the subject. But yeah, you summed it up nicely. The schools came together, athletic directors, presidents, after taking the advice of health officials, and I'm sure that had more than just COVID. Like, there's a lot more logistical stuff, health risks going on practicing spring football in Montana in February than just this pandemic situation here. So pretty interested to hear how you feel about the entire thing. Why don't you kind of start off? What was your initial reaction, I guess, when you read that? Were you like sad, disappointed, or like, that makes sense? Like, where did you land on that?
Well, I was kind of thinking we would opt out from initially, I would say. So I wasn't really too surprised. My hopes weren't up for February 27th to start against UC Davis. So when it came out, I guess, honestly, Ryan, this may sound a little weird. I was a little bit relieved. I didn't want to play this spring all that much. I felt like this was just going to be kind of a bad situation. I didn't feel like we were going to get much done. It was probably going to have some hiccups along the way. And so to me, this feels like a good reset for the program, just to say, okay, hey, we've spent this whole entire year in flux and preparing for something. And the kids have really been, and the players, I don't call them kids, but the players have really been kind of yo-yoed around a little bit in this whole thing. And now that you can just say to them, hey, we're nixing it. We're going to go at this like we would a normal spring. We are going to play some football, because I think that will be important for them to at least get their bodies again used to getting hit and just playing the game. But I think that puts the Montana State and the Montana programs in a good mental state, knowing what they have ahead of them, rather than going into this spring season maybe psyched for it, maybe not. But I think the teams like in the Big Sky who are hanging on to this in the FCS, there's a lot of uncertainty, and this takes out the uncertainty for me.
Well, you mentioned something too that I know Choate talked about. I don't remember if Bobby Houck talked about it. I don't listen too much to that side of it. I did try and listen because it's very pertinent and relevant. But Choate talked at length about the mental health aspect of things. And you mentioned that too. That's a big part of it. Like, the guys just need to know what they're working towards. They need to, have some sort of clarity, some sort of goal. And like last fall, like, okay, we're getting closer to this supposed season. Is it going to happen? Is it going to happen? I'm glad that there's some closure, and now there is a goal, and it's basically the same goal it always has been. Now we're going to have the traditional spring. Maybe you work towards playing a game or something, like you treat it, but you would be doing a scrimmage anyway. So in reality, it's going to end up being kind of similar. I don't know if we're going to actually play a full on Division I football game or not, but it's slightly modified in the fact that, okay, now it's a normal spring season with maybe a game or two instead of a normal scrimmage, but now it's all working towards the fall. So football players, especially guys like Jeff Choate, I think are huge creatures of habit and routine. So it's good. I think Joe was never comfortable having a modified routine, and now things are going to be back to normal. I think he's pretty happy about that. So, but to come back to how I felt when I first heard the news, I was actually a little surprised. I had never had huge high hopes that the season was going to happen, but I didn't really expect MSU and U of M to be the ones who pulled out first and kind of make the decision on their own. I just kind of assumed that the whole conference would go down in flames, or some other schools, like the schools that couldn't afford testing, would be the first ones to go out, and then we would just follow suit. I really didn't see MSU and U of M being the ones that are leading the way here. So that was my initial reaction, even though I wasn't surprised by it, that the spring isn't going to happen. I was surprised at the way it went down, I guess.
So there's 4 schools right now that have opted out: Montana State, Portland State, and Sacramento State.
Yeah, it's worth noting that Sac State did it last year. They're like, nope, we're done. Not even going to happen.
Yeah, they've kind of had an exodus of some players from their program.
And it's also worth mentioning, too, that Portland State, I think it was announced at the same time, right? MSU, U of M, and Portland State, all the same day, right?
I don't know about that.
I thought Portland State was news as well. Could be wrong, but
might have been.
That's more recent anyway.
So my question is to you, do you foresee any other Big Sky teams opting out?
I don't know. I would envision yes. The reasons are going to vary for every single school. And we'll get into the reasons we think Montana State did it. We'll get more into the depth of that here in a minute. But a lot of schools are going to be more financial related. So I imagine school like Portland State was one that was at high risk of that. Makes sense. I imagine Eastern's going to be probably in the boat to be canceled as well. But other than that, I really don't know who else would be canceling. Everyone else is going to be better set up for weather, for spring practice, and financially be maybe Northern Colorado. I would say could be another one that had a financial problem. But I would put those in my top targets to cancel would be Northern Colorado, Eastern. Yeah. How about you?
Well, I agree with Eastern. They are in some financial difficulties. And so I would say they would follow suit with the Montana schools. I don't know. I mean, it feels like the Montana schools are, they're the flagship schools of the Big Sky Conference. And so when they pull the plug of, I imagine some athletic directors are having some conversations right now going, well, there's Montana State opting out. They're probably having some good conversations this week about how they want to proceed.
I wonder if it crosses anybody's mind now that now the Montana State are out. Maybe we have a better opportunity to win a Big Sky championship than we would otherwise and make the playoffs. Do you think a school's considering that angle of it?
That's a great question. Like the bigger question I have that kind of fits that same question is, what is the benefit of playing the spring season?
Well, I mean, there still is a national championship on the line, although Jeff Choate made it very clear, and part of the reason that went into his deciding factor as well is that there's no guarantee that that's going to even happen. There's no guarantee from the NCAA.
The COVID Bowl.
I didn't hear that part, but he said there's no guarantee that NCAA is going to have the championship happen. So you could even go all the way through the spring, have 1 or 2 games canceled because of COVID, and you end up going 2-1 or 3-0 or something like that. Get to a first round game, and then the whole thing is called off or something like that, and then you've really kind of just put yourself in a box. So I don't know. I don't know.
Well, then you have to make the decision of how do you want to treat this season? Do you want to treat it as as we talked before, do you want to play a whole bunch of young players and get them a lot of reps? Do you want to put your best players out there and then kind of cross your fingers that they don't get injured right before spring? I mean, let's say Montana State did decide to play and we went on into the playoffs and we went maybe even to the championship game. There's going to be about 2 to 3 weeks after that championship game where they actually get to rest before summer workouts start. Your body, if you take a toll, if you have a nagging injury, I mean, that time in the spring is so important for injuries, surgical procedures, just getting your body right. You're going to miss out on that entire window. Granted, we're still going to play some spring ball, but it's just, when I start to think about what are the benefits, that same question I asked you, I'm starting to really scratch for some. I don't really know what are the benefits for playing a spring season.
Well, we're carrying a pretty big roster right now. So I was thinking you mainly start second, third stringers and just basically use it as nonstop scrimmage for them. And yeah, they'll get beat up, but the theory would be that it wouldn't play too much in the fall. So, I mean, that's a way you could approach it. I was thinking that regardless, even without considering the health impact of everything, I thought that would how we would just approach it strategically was as just a way to get a bunch of guys some playing time and start figuring out some position battles that maybe were still open and things like that. Oh, this is coming from a place of a guy who's never done any heavy duty sports. So I don't know the physical toll. I'm not a coach. I don't know any of this stuff. It's easy for me to say like, yeah, then just play and rest for a month and get right back to it. I don't know these things. Like I very much trust Jeff Choate's judgment and all these kinds of things. But that's how I would have approached it. Maybe even from the physical standpoint is just kind of, guys who wouldn't be playing too much in the fall, they'd be getting a brunt of it here. But yeah, that may be because all right, so then your first and second stringer get hurt in the fall. And then you got the third stringer guy who's already beat up from spring. Now he's coming in there. So probably not the best idea.
Yeah. No, and the more we talk about it, the more it makes sense for us to just opt out. But there were some very specific reasons. And let's just get into that. So I'm just going to read a quote from Jeff Choate. This is off of MSU Bobcats, their release from the press conference that was held on Friday. It says, Jeff says, "This has been a trying year for everyone. We respect the fact that each institution is a different place and is in a different place in its ability to practice, compete, and meet testing protocols. Here in Montana, we're uniquely challenged in keeping our student athletes safe and healthy, which is our top priority, while preparing and playing in deep winter conditions. This is nearly impossible to accomplish given the Big Sky Conference scheduled timeline. Finding a way to compete in some fashion when circumstances allow remains important to me and our administration." Just a second quote from Bobby Houck. "We want to compete this spring, but we don't believe in playing in a complete conference schedule is the best interest of our program." So, I think this comes down to one major factor in COVID aside. I think both schools would be able to float the bill for testing. I think that was on the
figured
table.
out. Even if there's no revenue at the gate, these schools will figure it out. Montana schools.
Yeah. So I'm actually going to quote Bobby Houck here again. He says, "We feel like we have a championship caliber team and preparing to win a championship in Montana in February with no indoor facility would be difficult at best. I think a modified schedule." You hit me with that.
Sorry.
I love it. Okay.
I was late to the game on it. I should have done it earlier in your when he said national caliber team. But anyway, carry on.
Yeah, no, I'm just going to end his quote right there because that's the point that I wanted to say. Preparing to win a championship in Montana in February with no indoor practice facility would be difficult at best. That is the common thread between Jeff Choate and Bobby Houck right now. And Jeff Choate went on to say, he goes, we don't agree on a lot of things, but this is something we can agree on.
Yeah, as much as I want to poke fun at that statement, I mean, Houck is absolutely right. Yeah. It's easy to, you gotta poke some jabs at Houck in particular when you can. But he's right. Like if you have aspirations for the fall, you can't sacrifice it in any way in the spring. One thing Jeff Choate said when he was, I don't know if this is the interview with Coulter on Nuanez Now on ESPN Missoula, or if it's part of the press conference, I don't know. But he said that they're following the NCAA guidelines for practicing, and then that they do not recommend that you practice in less than 15-degree weather. I had no idea that was a thing. So, I mean, that's going to happen, right? There's a good chance at some point in late January, February, that it's going to be below 15 degrees at 7 a.m. in Bozeman. It's going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah.
And I mean, and what was it last year? I think they got like 8 spring practices in. Cho was talking about how am I supposed to go down to like UC Davis February 27th, and they've had all 29, a lot of practices, and we've gotten like 10 practices in. Is that a good position to put my guys into my program in? I mean, it makes a lot of sense when you think about it like that. And I had not really considered the aspect that how many spring practices they could actually even get in if they wanted to in a place like UC Davis. Of course, they're going to get all of them in. So that's a huge disadvantage. And it also puts your players in like physical jeopardy if they haven't been properly practicing and training. They could get hurt probably more easily, I'd imagine.
You're absolutely right. Now, I kind of wonder too now, like if you're in the program, I mean, if you're a player in the program, you know what this is about. You're probably going like, how do I even approach this season? Like, okay, I'm going to give it my best, but it just feels like a grab for FCS. Like the FCS, honestly, like looking back on this whole thing, Ryan, we probably should have just played in the fall and be done with it and just get back on the timeline. And I think this is one thing that puts us back on the timeline of normal football schedule rhythms of college football. Canceling this, I just don't know, man. This just feels weird now.
So we're gonna do an episode. I think we talked about it. I think we'll end up doing it about conference realignment, potential for going FBS, and all these kinds of things.
Correct.
This is one of the times where I felt the most like we could do better than the FCS, right? Like everyone else canceled. If we would have been FBS, we would have played football like anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, all right, maybe this is the first time I thought like maybe we don't belong in this division. So anyway, that's a whole topic. But that's the thing I've been thinking about. I was like, man, if we were FBS, we would have played a full slate, or at least probably 6 games. You know, we would have played enough games to become bowl eligible. Not that that's a whole, like I said, separate conversation. But you're right. And looking back, maybe we could play in the fall, maybe not. It's hard to say. Hindsight is 2020 on this, but Big Sky Conference did say, and they came out with that mandate last year and talked about it too, that nobody in the Big Sky Conference gets to play an out-of-conference game in the fall. They canceled the season, and they said nobody can play a game. And I know Jeff Choate and Bobby Houck, I'm sure, would have played some games if the opportunity had presented to them, but the Big Sky shut that down real fast.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a bummer. Like, and you would have loved to see just even 2 games, just to kind of like the spring season is the modified spring season. You get the fall camp, and instead of a scrimmage, you actually play a game that doesn't really mean a whole lot in the grand scheme of things. So it would have been a nice way to have a fall camp transition into the spring to at least keep guys hungry and a goal. You know, that would have been better than nothing.
Yeah. So I think that was a missed opportunity, and now we're here. And so one thing Jeff Choate likes to do is control the situation. And this felt like very much like a control thing. Like, okay, we can control with this decision, how we're going to move forward. And I think Montana State put them in the driver's seat to prepare them to succeed in the fall of 2021. So I think this is good. I think this honestly is a good choice for Montana State and the University of Montana.
Do you agree with the choice? You said it's a good choice. Do you agree that it is a good decision?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I wasn't sure where I felt. I was like, we're going to start talking about this, and it's going to bring me clarity one direction or the other. And I believe I agree. Like I think it's overall the best for the program, for the players, for the coaches. But side note, poor Justin Udy might go the longest I've ever seen a coach be hired before he's actually coaching in a game. It's going to, I guess if we play some this spring, but otherwise, if he doesn't do anything until next fall, it's going to be going on 18 months.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Which is a great way to acclimate a new coach into the program. He's going to get a lot of time in the film room and studying before he ever has to do it. A guy who doesn't have a lot of experience calling plays. So I guess there's the silver lining for Justin Udy anyway.
Hey, Thorny, a little sidebar. This has to put the indoor practice facility on fast forward, right?
You would think so. Like this is, in a way, like Choate's probably like, this is my best leverage I'm ever going to get fundraising going for an indoor practice facility. Because like we would have had one, we would be playing this spring with the rest of the guys here, but now we can't because it's going to be 10 degrees in January.
I'm predicting within 2 years.
Ooh, that's a bold prediction. We haven't done a bold prediction in a while. That's a bold one.
That is a bold one. Jeff Choate was lobbying for it, and saying, hey, this is going to be a community thing. We're going to use it for soccer and Little League and the Bozeman community. I think he said it's already in the works.
Well, that's exciting. I hope he's right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, in the interest of keeping this moving, we both agree with MSU and U of M. Do you have anything else to say on our thoughts on the season before we get into talking about what kind of games the Cats could end up playing?
I guess it's. I'm really interested to see what the other Big Sky schools will end up doing. My general prediction is that we will see a fallout from Eastern, UC Davis. I don't know about the Idaho schools. I think the Idaho schools will ride it to the end. Weber might cancel. I don't know. I think there's going to be enough that the whole thing's going to basically within what, maybe a month, maybe 2 weeks. I think this whole the whole Big Sky will opt out.
I'm looking at the schedules, the aggregate schedules for everybody. Eastern, that's half their schedule. They had Portland State, U of M, and MSU on it. So it actually might work out in their favor.
Yeah.
How did the schedule go? Was it the first three were away games and the back three were home games? Is that how this worked?
Yeah, because of cold weather.
So yeah, so they Eastern started for week 1, Portland State, week 2, the Grizz. So then they have a home game with UC Davis on March 13th. And then they go to Idaho, or no, I'm sorry, they have an away game at UC Davis, and then they have Idaho, then they would have had us, and then they'll have Cal Poly. Eastern might be able to make that work. I don't know what happens if you only play 3 conference games. Did you have to play all 6 to get in the playoffs like that? Oh, I don't even want to try and go down that road, but
see, that's what they should do. They should all just follow suit, call good, and then play this like co-op type of football that you just, if the Big Sky allows us to do this, allows us to call people up, schedule a practice, a scrimmage, a game, whatever you want to call it, and just go for it. So that's what I'm hoping.
Yeah, it's probably for the best. But if a school wants to go through and all the opponents want to go through with it, then they should be allowed to. I guess we shouldn't go back to the situation like we did in the fall where we just say you can't do anything. I think Jeff Choate brought up that each school is different in its own situation. So if some school wants to go forward, then you should let them. Let them sort out how to get in the playoffs and all that crap. That'd be a headache I don't want to deal with, but they should be able to do that, right?
Yeah. I think it is important that the kids get to play some football. They need to feel the game again.
Yeah. I mean, they should make their decision about if that's good for their player health to go play 6 games and then maybe playoff game or 2 and then get back in the fall. So it's their own decision.
So the last part of this discussion, we put it out on Twitter. We talked about, he put it on Twitter, said the Cats left the door open for a few games later in the spring. Who would you like to see the Cats play? Before we get into some of the responses, Ryan, I'm going to put you on the spot right here. Give me 3 teams you'd like to see the Cats play.
Well, I mean, are you talking like realistically or just anybody?
That's a good question.
Because I know like North Dakota State obviously be great, but they're on right now. They have like an 8 or 9 conference game schedule going. So
this spring?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. So give me 2 realistic ones. Give me one like wishful one.
I mean, my wishful one would be probably, the Grizz, right? You gotta have Cat Grizz, even if it's just a scrimmage in Butte. That will never happen. And the Grizz made that very clear that will not happen. I don't know if MSU said that as much, but it's not going to happen. That's out of the picture. That'd be my dream one. Or any other top-notch team in the FCS. I mean, those are always just the matchups you want to see. North Dakota State, South Dakota State. JMU would be cool to come to Bozeman or something like that. But realistically, I imagine it's going to end up being Tech, or it's going to be an NAIA Montana school, if I had to guess.
Call who you know. Get all your get the Rolodex out, flip the Rolodex, start calling people right now, right?
Do you think there's people listening to us who are wondering what a Rolodex is?
Yes, I do.
Googling Rolodex. That's a watch, right?
Nope.
Well, I know Indiana
Ryan,
State canceled, so I mean, there's an option there. If Indiana State wants to get a game in, there'd be at least a well-known Missouri Valley Football Conference team that's not doing anything, so that'd be a good one.
Yeah, I think you got to keep all options open. I disagree with you on the Grizz. I see a lot of people saying Grizz, obviously. I wouldn't want to play the Grizz in like this scheduled two to three games right now. That just seems like too much build up for something that could be really crappy football and then just really trashy football too. Like you got two teams that hate each other and they haven't played football in forever. You're going to put them out there and get this state all hyped up and it's just going to be a slop fest. I don't know, man. That just doesn't seem to me like a good plan whatsoever. So I just think it would be too much build up for something that wouldn't mean all that much. And so I'm out on the Grizz. I wouldn't want to play them in this 3-game stretch. I would like to play like a team like Wyoming. If we could schedule a FBS school and something that they would treat like a scrimmage, I think that'd be pretty cool. Like I was thinking just yesterday, I was like, hey, let's go play Boise State. Think about that, Ryan.
There might be a little bit of extra motivation on Jeff Jones' side.
Yeah, let's call them up. Let's get the Broncos, and let's roll down to Boise, and they're not going to come up here. That would be sweet. When Boise State came up to Bozeman, that would be so much fun.
Anywhere that's drivable would be cool, though. So an FBS school like Boise State, or I don't actually know how far away Wyoming is, but any other more regional FBS schools. I didn't really think about the FBS angle. They're probably back to just a normal spring schedule. I don't know how that would work, but if they'd be allowed to, because that'd be a game for them. So I don't know how that works if they're on the traditional path and we're not.
It's good. I think that all comes down to what the NCAA will allow to happen. So, Leon Costello has his South Dakota State ties, and that'd be a heck of a game to go play South Dakota State or have them come over again. And my pie in the sky would be North Dakota State. If we could schedule the Bison and get another shot at them, I would love to do that. So those Wyoming, South Dakota State, North Dakota State, but realistically, it's probably going to be Montana Tech, Carroll, or Havre, or somewhere else.
Do you have a preference for the NAIA schools? Like, who would you like most to play there?
Tech. So Tom Stuber says Carroll, Tech, Rocky, Western, Northern, UVM, and Wyoming. Our buddy Chris Hammond says Portland State.
And Montana. Yeah, the ones that canceled. Not going to happen there, buddy.
You see anything else on there? A Texas team from Scott Linneman says maybe a Texas team recruiting trip to Dallas or Houston area. So he's working that angle right there.
I kind of like Brad Burgum's angle, who's a big guy on Bobcat Nation. It won't be a real season. He said he'd just prefer to see the expanded live action scrimmages to give as many guys simulated game experience as possible and let us see what they can do. I don't really see any upside of spring exhibition games against other programs. So, I mean, that's a good point too. Like, all right, let's say you get South Dakota State in here. Like, what do you really accomplish by playing that game versus a scrimmage? I mean, it's better. You'll probably treat it more seriously than you would a scrimmage, maybe. But in the end, the result's probably going to be pretty similar.
Well, maybe the result is a little similar, but if you're actually a player in the program, you're going to get way more up for playing South Dakota State than your brother across the aisle.
Yeah, it's true.
So
unless the brother across the aisle is pissing you off all spring and you get a chance to hit him in the mouth.
Well, you're going to have plenty of chances to do that regardless, but I'm going to disagree with Brad. Sorry, Brad.
So one thing is I'm looking at the spring schedule here. We had the home games at the end of the year. We had the Grizz on March 27th, then we had Eastern, and then we had Idaho State. It's like, why don't we just call up Eastern and Idaho State and play those games anyway?
Yeah, that's a possibility.
because obviously those teams don't have anything to do on that date now because we pulled that out. So like Idaho State, April 10th, that's a bussable game. Like that'd be a good one, right? If we're going actual
why,
D1
but Idaho State is a protected rival for Montana State.
Are they?
Yeah. Did you know who our protected rivals are?
It was Northern Colorado and the Grizz. I thought. Is there 3?
Yeah, there's 3 of them.
ISU is the other one.
ISU is the other one.
Oh, I like that better than Northern Colorado, I guess.
Yeah, why is Northern Colorado protected rival for Montana State? There you go. Let's get out of here.
All right. Well, thanks again, everyone, for listening. Let's get out of here. Thanks again to Jeremiah Johnson for being our sponsor. Please rate, review, subscribe to the podcast on any podcast listening platform. You can find us on Twitter, RRCatcast. Find us on the Bobcat Nation. In case you didn't know that, this is Celtic Cat and Common Cat here. I don't know if we've ever actually said that online. It's pretty obvious because we post all the time about it, but that's who we are. You can find us there. rrcatcast.com, rrcatcast@gmail.com. And Foley, let's end this with the big old Go Cats.
Go Cats.
Go Cats.
All right. I got places to be.